Shadows of the Shroud is here, with Revamped Psionic Ascension and the end of cycle. There's also the new Mindwarden Enclave, 3 new origins, Proxy Wars, 6 new civics, species traits, and more. In this video, I will be providing you with a complete overview of the DLC, with in-game examples. So you know exactly what's included, as well as my opinions on them, as I've already played through all of the new origins and messed around with Psionic Ascension, end of cycle, the new civics, Proxy Wars, and traits. Before we get into the video, this video is brought to you by Paradox. So if you're interested in purchasing the DLC, make sure to use my link in the description or pinned comment, or you can use my code EP3Stellaris, case sensitive, on the Paradox store at checkout. It helps out the channel, also gets Paradox coming back for those sponsors. It's greatly appreciated, and thank you again to Paradox for sponsoring. Now, let's get into the video. First up, we have to cover the revamped Psionic Ascension, which also includes Psionic Ascension for machines and hives, so everyone can psionically ascend. To achieve Psionic Ascension, you must go the Mind Over Matter Ascension perk. It is slightly different for machines, where you have to go interdimensional processing, where you'll need 3 other Ascension perks to be selected first. For biological empires, you still need to go Mind Over Matter. You'll need to pick 2 Ascension perks before you can take it, so you'll need 3 traditions before you can take it. This will gain access to the tradition tree psionics and will unlock the agenda Mind Over Matter, which will grant the psionic technologies as a research option, as if we tried to pick it right now, we can't because we need psionic theory. Mind Over Matter will take the same time as the normal length agendas and then give you 25% to that research if you're struggling to find it. Once you have psionic theory, you can pick psionics, which will unlock the agenda psionic supremacy and will start a situation to grant the founding species the psionic trait. We'll adopt this and then we get the Psionic Ascension law. This will then give your pops the latent psionic trait and unlock the Shroud tab, as you can see here. We'll get into that soon. The trait Latent Psionic gives job efficiency to researchers, bureaucrats, and telepaths of 5%, which is pretty nice. Psionic Supremacy gives an initial modifier of research speed to psionics plus 10%. You get 10% attunement to patrons. You get job efficiency for psionic pops plus 5%. Then when activated, this all goes up. You get 40% research speed to psionics, 40% patron attunement, and job efficiency for psionic pops. The attunement we will get into. This situation is similar to Machine Age and Biogenesis. However, you might have noticed there was no choice to different psionic ascension paths, and that's because every single empire will have the same psionic tree. The replayability, the different options will come from this Shroud panel. There's different ways of speeding up this situation. You can watch and wait, where you'll get minus 25% situation speed, or you can do organized meditation, which instead of slowing down the progress by 25% will slow down monthly unity, but you will also get a higher chance of beneficial events, as this situation is ticking along, you will get different events. If you have 0, however, you probably should use it. For an upkeep of 1, you will get 25% situation speed and 25% monthly unity, and a higher chance of chaotic events. Who knows what it could offer. And if you've got Astral Threads, it will give you 10 situation speed, 10% unity for an upkeep of 10 Astral Threads a month, and a higher chance of chaotic events similar to the Shroud. When you have clicked on it, you can change this as you please as you tick through this. Here's an example of a situation. You can advance this situation by 100. You'll get the Empathic Initiative modifier for 10 years, where you get opinion with all contact empires plus 50 and diplomatic weight, or you can say no to this and get 20% stability for 10 years, but reduce the situation. There's a lot of these events, and I'm not going to cover them all, but it will shake up the game as they are usually random. Pick what is useful for your empire or a path that you enjoy. I like getting through these situations as quickly as possible, so we'll click that. As you can see, it jumps up. Now, while this is ticking along and we're getting events, we can still go down the psionic tree, and we can get a Psycorps. So during Psionic Ascension, it will unlock the Situation Stage 2 and the Psycorps. So we won't be able to progress to the Situation 2 until we get Psycorps. We will select that. Now, you might notice we can't actually progress down any of these other trees, even though we have enough unity. This is because we must reach Stage 2 until we can grab the Great Awakening. While you are doing this, I would recommend saving unity and not go down other ways, just so you can finish off psionics. Again, another event, minus 1000 energy, less society research, or night terrors. So this is basically all negatives and will affect outcomes to your Psionic Ascension, which will tie into the Shroud panel here. Let's just lose some energy and you can see we shift upwards. These events and what you pick will land you on this political compass of sorts, where each part is a different domain, which will have its own buffs and ways to interact. You will then reach stage 2. So to progress the situation more, we need that tradition, but also to build a Cyclops building, which is under government, and you can only build 1 per planet. However, it'll give you 5 stability and 200 telepath jobs. Interestingly, you don't need to work the jobs for the stability, so it's basically free stability. Telepaths will take some energy and consumer goods, but produce a whole bunch of unity, reduce crime by 25, and give you planetary defensive armies. Worthwhile working on your planet. A small tip, you probably don't need your enforcers anymore, since the telepaths will be doing their job. Now that stage 2 is unlocked, we can do the Great Awakening, which during Psionic Ascension, which is now, will unlock the situation stage 3, so you need this to move on to the next stage. At stage 3 of Psionic Ascension, so this won't happen when we pick it, but when we get to stage 3 in the situation it will, all latent psionic species will unlock their full psionic potential. After Psionic Ascension, it will allow psionic assimilation of other species, unlocking their latent abilities. So there's different perks at different stages of the situation. Once you take the Great Awakening, you can move to the left or the right as they are connected. Telekinesis during the situation will give 5% situation speed, and after Psionic Ascension, all psionic pops will have habitability and happiness increased by 10%. Even though this gives you nothing while the situation is going on, a 5% boost to it is amazing because it will speed it up and get these buffs, so I like to try and take these as soon as we can. On the right is Clairvoyance. We get situation speed of 5% during Psionic Ascension, similar to before. After Psionic Ascension, we get sensor range from Psionic Commanders +1, base intel 10, code breaking 2, and encryption 2. We're going to take that to speed it up. And psychometry will give you 5% speed, and after Psionic Ascension, your crime reduced from telepaths is increased by -5, and your job efficiency for psionic specialists goes up by 5% with galactic history specimen output plus 25%. Just some nice buffs to specialists. Again, I would get this as soon as you can because it will increase that situation. And that tradition's finished, so now we get the Edict, Sight Beyond Sight, which for Zhro will give sensor range, -15% to hyperjump charge time, hyperjump cooldown, jump drive cooldown, and quantum catapult accuracy goes up by 15%. Useful if you're using any of those. We then also have Empire Size effect -10%, which is not the Empire size, but the effect that it applies to it, which we don't have any because we're below 100, but essentially this will increase tech cost by say 100%, the -10% will bring that down to 90%. And then of course we get the Ascension perk. We have now reached stage 3 and we have the Great Awakening. All latent psionic species will now unlock their full psionic potential, allows psionic assimilation of other species, unlocking their latent abilities, and continues the situation, Psionic Ascension. Psionic gives job efficiency to researchers, bureaucrats, and telepaths 10%, and gives happiness 5%, but we also get additional traits for our leaders. For example, officials will give more unity to jobs, Galcom resolution action cost reduction, and monthly Federation experience gain. Commanders get the unity again, but give 10% shield weapon damage and 10% shield hardening, with 10% army morale and army morale damage. Scientists get more survey speed and anomaly discovery chance, while they get unity from jobs on the planets. Then when the situation is finished, it will conclude the situation, but allow us to delve into the Shroud, the eye following our cursor. The delve no longer costs any resources, but has a cooldown of 1,800 days. Let's delve. Now we can try to commune with the enclosed one, which is at the top here, because of the choices we chose, any actions we've done throughout the game, and ethics. And now we must spend society research to try and commune with them, as at the minute we can't actually see anything except for our attunement. We found the Instrument of Desire. We can either attune with the Instrument of Desire, which will reveal the Instrument of Desire in the Shroud. We can just reveal them, or we can lose attunement with them but still reveal them. Let's gain attunement with them. This basically means it will push us further towards this domain. As you can see, we've moved up. Each domain has buffs. For example, the domain of the Instrument of Desire has resource from jobs plus 10%, but we don't have this because we need 300 attunement. Let's click on the Instrument of Desire, which also has a pop-up key of plus 25%. So these buffs do not come for free. In this screen, we have missions to do, like clear a blocker, which will gain us 100 attunement. We can also assign envoys here to increase attunement. Let's do that. And then we get a rundown of the Accords, which are those buffs we saw. For example, Bliss, which needs 600 attunement, will gain the ability to upgrade a resort world to a pleasure world, allowing the building of Sanctums and Cyclops and increasing trade by 5%. And it will also unlock the building Sanctum of the Instrument, which gives more trade from jobs and telepath jobs. So you can see this domain is heavily based around trade. There's also Covenant Powers, which costs 0. We can remove the cost of our next planetary ascension, which could be strong if you're going for really ascended planets. An exploitation for 150 Zhro, resources from jobs per 100 entertainers in all owned colonies be 10 years plus 1%. The intensity of these psionic auras in all systems goes down by 1,000. We also have positive and negative deeds. For example, performing a planetary ascension will raise our attunement by 20, passing a resolution 20, establishing a trade deal 10, safeguarding, destroying a pirate fleet plus 5 multiplied by ship size, and uplifting gives 0.1 per uplifted pop. Now, of course, there's negatives, like releasing a sector as a vassal, colonizing a Gaia world, adopting adaptability or expansion, terraforming, or breeding, which is clone of space fauna, not multiplying your pops. These deeds are exactly mirrored with whatever domain is opposite it. So if you ascend, you're going to go up, but lose attunement, obviously, with the domain opposite. If you don't like the challenge, you can reset them every year. I actually have no blockers, so I physically can't do it, but luckily we can change it. As you can see, our attunement is raising, and you can see why, and more information by hovering over. Because we're anglers and egalitarian, we have minus 110 attunement, but then we have materialists, so we got plus 50. It's changing by 2 a month. Let's reset this and see what we get. Build any building for 100. That can be done. And you can see there's a toast to tell us that we have done that, as well as a notification. Then we will get a new one, like construct a district. So you can see this one's very economy focused. And now, because we do have the required attunement, we do get the resource from jobs. Now I'm jumping to the end of the Shroud Forged Origin, where we were a machine psionic, just to show off a more later game Shroud panel. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. First off, we are comfortably in the composer of the Shrouds with 807 out of 1000. We have both accords, pop growth and influence, as well as a planetary decision and the sanctum of the composer. You can see the negatives here: uplift a species, establish a trade deal, clear a block, upgrade a capital building. These are slightly different. I don't know if these are exactly mirrored or if they're random every time. But anyway, we do have those covenant powers too that show up here. This one seems very busted. A random uninhabitable world within our borders is transformed into a size 20 Gaia world. I mean, that's crazy. We can also just add our own main species to all colonies within our psionic aura, which we will get onto the auras in a minute. The composer also lowers organic species picks, but gives more pop assembly per telepaths. Ear of the World lowers unity and stability. Now, we're not actually in the Eater of the World, so we're not, from what I can tell, are getting those negatives. If I hover over our stability, we're not getting the -5. However, we are getting the ship fire rate and damage because we have more than 350 attunement. Now, we're definitely not getting any of the souls. There's also minor patrons. Now, there's 8 total. The 4 that you can get in the galaxy by delving into the Shroud are randomly chosen, so you never know which ones are going to be there. Now, because of Shroud Forged, you will always get the Animator of Clay, which is giving us 10% mechanical and organic pop assembly, and we're getting more efficiency to fabricators 5%, and we're producing Zero per telepath. This accord has been granted. Now, you can get all 4. I don't think it matters where you are to get them. As you can see, we're not near it, but we're still getting it. These can be strong, and it's, from what I can tell, random when you delve into the Shroud to potentially unlock a minor patron. They can be nice boosts as you go through the game. Now, the final thing is the auras. Each domain has their own aura. These also have different effects. So for example, the Aura of the Strand is giving us sublight speed, pop assembly, pop growth multiplier, pop growth speed, and unity from naturally occurring blockers. Now, if you're non-hostile to me, you give sublight speed even more pop growth speed, more pop growth assembly, and mechanical pop assembly. But if you're hostile, you'll get negative sublight speed and minus 45% planetary infrastructure. To get these auras, you need the tech Psionic Aura, which is a society technology, a psionic rare tech, and these techs give you success chance when delving plus 10% and will unlock that aura. The second level will give you a further 20% success chance and will give you the ability to spread auras up to 5 hyperlanes from the emitting source, and gives you psionic aura growth, allows the psionic aura to grow in intensity. Now, we have a total of 14 system affected, and we have a total of 14,000 intensity. What does this mean? If you come over to my capital here, you can see this green glowing spread over the hyperlanes and the systems. This is the aura. So if we go into here, you can see the auras in the system too, and you can see all those bonuses that I was talking about. At the top, we have the intensity. At the minute, it's moderate, and we're getting plus 69, nice, a month. The effects of the auras also increase as the intensity increases, and I believe high is the highest. These auras radiate out from different sources. Once an aura reaches maximum intensity in a system, it will spread across the hyperplanes where possible. The auras are basically based where your psionic populations are concentrated. An intensity gain is increased by psionic pops and their happiness, priests, psionic governors, and shrouded worlds. So if you want to increase it as much as possible, start getting those psionic governors. Make those unity worlds with as many damn priests as you can. I don't know if it works with things like telepath drones. Surely it does, but I can't really tell. These auras are a good thing to spread. They're going to buff you up, especially if you've attuned and matched what the patron is. For example, Bob growth speed's pretty nice with just getting loads of pops. The strands will obviously have a different one, same as the Cradle of Souls. The Shroud panel has a lot to do with breaching into the Shroud, and there's lots and lots of different options that are going to change game to game, even if you play the same Empire. So I can't cover it all, but you can discover it by playing and buying the DLC for yourself. You can also create your own domain, but I'll let you mess around with that. There's also a whole bunch of psionic government types like we've seen in Biogenesis and Machine Age. Now there is one way to stop the auras, and that's the Mindwarden Enclave. As you can see by the Shroud seal stopping this aura spread anywhere near it. The Mindwarden Enclave will be above a shrouded world and have their cool new shipset, which we'll get into because you can play with their shipset later, and they're similar to things like the Artist Enclave, the Trade League, Salvager Enclave, Shroud Walkers. However, they are opposing psionics and the auras, so someone like me who has gone through and messed around with a bunch of auras will not allow me to contact them no matter how hard I try. They're also directly in opposition with the Shroud Walker Enclave, so if you communicate with them and do stuff with them, the Mindwarden's not going to like you. However, if we switch to another empire that hasn't messed around with auras, we can communicate with them. You can get information on the Shroud, you can discuss Ro, like donating Dro to them for them to destroy, and you'll get a bunch of energy and opinion to them. However, the unidentified empire, the Shroud Walkers, are not going to be happy. You can also pay the Mindwardens to raid a psionic empire that we know of. So we could raid my old empire to just go and attack them. You can also get help with crime among you, where you can recruit the Fort Police, which will reduce energy by 1000 and influence by 50, but will give you a decision, the Fort Police, which will give you more opinion with the Mindwardens. This decision will increase your stability by 10 and reduce crime for 10 years. It's actually pretty good. You don't even need to build queue it, it just instantly applies. However, you can only do it on one planet. You can also get logistical assistance as your opinion increases. This will reduce your ship upkeep by 15%, 10,000 energy, and raise opinion. It's really good late game because ship upkeep becomes an issue. You can also make use of their soldiers. So you can get some assault wardens for 1000 energy and 50 influence, which I don't actually see where they are. Here. They're decently powered, but not that much. You can also get one of their wardens, which will give you a level 5 Mindwarden Commissioner and 30 opinion, and it will also unlock the council position to increase monthly unity per level, which per skill level will increase monthly unity by 1%, reduce crime by 1%, and give you psionic aura resistance. To get that, you will need to reform your government. You can put anyone on it, but the Mindwarden does start at level 5, so it may be worth doing that. Mindwarden also has Iron Will, giving psionic aura resistance plus 90%, armor hardening 20, and tracking 25%, with the army effect of plus 50% morale and 25% health. The Mindwardens can also fire events to help you reduce auras in the galaxy, like giving you the technology for the Shroud Seal and psionic suppression. And that's obviously a perfect segue onto one of the new origins, Mindwardens, where you essentially play as the Enclave. This is a challenging origin and blocks access to Psionic Ascension, as they're against it. You'll start with the Starhold technology, as well as a Starhold in your capital. On your homeworld, you also get the Ancient Ward, reducing bombardment damage by 25% and soldier jobs increased, and it will give 200 soldier jobs. You also gain access to the Psionic Containment Casus Belli against psionically ascended empires, so you can really roleplay as destroying any psionic empires in the galaxy, which is really cool. However, you don't get guaranteed habitable worlds, but there's a reason for that later on, and no Mindwarden Enclaves will generate at the start of the game. You are the Mindwardens. You also get +2 encryption, 25% damage to psionic empires, and 25% evasion to psionic empires. This origin will guarantee you to start with some custom systems on your border. These custom systems have dangerous energies, and it's the story of how you take down this aura of the Dreamer. It's actually a really fun origin. There will be a full playthrough of me going through it, but slight spoilers, so skip to the next origin. The reason you don't start the guaranteed is you will get guaranteed from taking down whoever is admitting these auras. You also get access to a pretty crazy relic, which gives you buffs to Shroud Seals, as well as terraforming a Shrouded world into a Gaia world. And there's other paths. You don't even need to fight them. It's quite an open-ended origin, and it's really fun to play. And on top of all of that, you get access to the Mindwarden enclaves. So you can create Mindwarden enclaves across the galaxy from your empire, which function like mercenaries mixed with Mindwarden enclaves. As you can see here, my custom Mindwarden enclave, you can do all of the things we discussed before, but we can also, as the founding patron, switch to the enclave stuff, like expanding them, hiring fleet, and they'll also pay dividends. It's an incredibly fun origin. The next origin is basically starting as a machine psionic. You get the Shroud Forged origin. Your homeworld will start with Shroud Touch regions, giving deviancy and producing a Shroud. You'll start with 1000 Shroud Forged pops, but you'll start with the situation forged by the Shroud, which will be the journey of either embracing the Shroud or rejecting it. Like Dro Distillation, which will unlock the building Shroud Observation Complex. You also get the unique building Shroud Observation Tower, which gives some science jobs, and an observator drone, which turns Ro into physics and society research. You also get the planetary decision to pierce the Shroud, which you can do 4 times. Every time you do it, it will remove a random planetary feature, but produce Dro. There is, however, the risk, once you do it more than once, that this planet will just become a shrouded world, losing the entire planet. So you need to be a little bit careful, but you can get lucky and get 4 shrouded worlds for 4 Dro. Now, of course, if you embrace the Shroud and Animated Clay, you get to what we showed off before, the Animated Clay Minor Patron and Poser of Strands, and the access to the Shroud panel, where you can go into any 4 of the domains that you want. The origin has a ticking situation with 2 different ends. You can obviously support the Animated Clay, or you can suppress them, or you can observe. These move you up and down and have an upkeep of 3 Dro. One increases deviancy as you become more free, but increases unity. The other lowers deviancy, but lowers unity, and sends you to the right. There's different modifiers, like having Shroud Forged pops, colonies touched by the Shroud, Shroud observatories, so depending which way you want to go, you can buff this or lower it. You could even remove the observation tower to speed up rejecting them. You'll then get situations which can lower or increase the situation for negatives and positives. And the Shroud Forged trait gives your specialists and complex drones plus 25% efficiency, while your workers and menial drones get minus 25%. If you do manage to go all the way to the left, you'll get a project for reintegration. Going the other way would send you on the path of psionics. Once reintegration is finished, you get 10% complex drone output. You also get the materiality engine and allows the adoption of the Galactic Nemesis Ascension perk, regardless of ethics or Ascension perk total. So if you reject, it's basically a Galactic Nemesis rush. The engine is an empire limit of 1, you get damage to psionic empires plus 5%, and you get extra dimensional research jobs. You also get a project to derive psionic component technology from the Shroud. When this project is complete, it increases the output of this building and the amount of materiality engines that can be built. So it doesn't actually have any jobs, it also produces minerals and alloys for Dro, and then you get that special project, which costs a lot. We can now build another engine, and we get psionic shield, so it goes a bit crazy. Oh, it does have jobs because of the extra dimensional research unit, of course. This origin is also pretty cool. There's going to be much more to delve into here. That's just a brief overview of it. It's essentially a gateway into psionic machines or Nemesis, as you also do not need the Ascension perk for psionic Ascension with this origin, so it's a lot easier to go Psionic Ascension as a machine when you're playing it. That brings us to the Endbringers and the end of cycle. This origin is essentially the fast track to the end of cycle, so we'll cover both in this one segment, because you can get the end of cycle in a normal game as Psionic Ascension if you go down Psionic Ascension, but it's incredibly rare, so this is your best bet, as you'll always get it with Endbringers. This is a challenging origin, and it will block all Ascension paths except for Psionic Ascension. Your empire starts with the Paranoia modifier, which, as the game goes on, your happiness will go down from 5% to 50%. You also cannot join or form a federation, and you can't be pacifist Gestalt, Chosen Civic, or Machine. This origin is a journey to the end of cycle. You don't instantly get it. You need to progress through missions such as this archaeological site on a shrouded world destroyed right next to yours. Once you finish that dig site, you'll then get the Realm of Madness, which will unlock the Psionic Tradition tree. So again, no Ascension perk needed for that. You also get negative modifiers and custom ways to progress through Psionic Ascension, as well as custom events that will happen different to normal Psionic Ascension. You will want to get to Psionic Ascension as soon as you can, because the Chamber of Silence will reduce negative effects, as well as start you off on the journey. Once you form the Covenant, your Shroud panel will look a bit different than before. It's essentially a ticking clock, which is linked to the end of cycle situation. If you reach the finisher, you lose. To win, you need to spread that aura we talked about before in every single system. The aura of the end gives you minus 30% ship upkeep, research station, mining station, and resource from jobs 100%. Hostiles get monthly hull damage to non-orbiting ships, minus 18 stability, and 36 upkeep from jobs. The aura is spread in pretty much the same way. However, the intensity gain of the Aura of the End is also increased by the presence of military fleets. So you can spread out your military fleets and spread that aura. You can see we're getting plus 597 from our capital because we have many Psionic Pops, as well as the Chamber of Silence, which is a slightly different Psycorps that you unlock through the Psionic Tradition. This gives you 5% Psionic Aura intensity gain, so you want to build them on every single planet that you can, so you can spread that aura across the galaxy. As you progress through these situations, you will get to different tiers. These tiers unlock different things on that clock. For example, in tier 1, you only get the first two, tier 2 the next two, tier 3 the next two, tier 4 the next two. And also, if you do delve into the Shroud, nothing's going to happen. Now, each one of these gives you different buffs and effects. The first one here, 10,000 energy for a Gaia world in your capital system with 1,000 pops. Very, very strong, because it means in your capital, you can have a bunch of planets with more psionic aura potential. And the Aura of the End is not limited to spread to just 5 systems away from you. So this will constantly spread out and push on to other systems until they basically reach any psionic seals. As you can see, the seal is blocking the aura from spreading. The next one will reduce the end of cycle situation progress by 60, but it will cost you 9,000 of each resource. This can only be done once though. It is useful to buy you some time. You can then increase your research station and mining station output by 100%. This and the Gaia world can be done multiple times. It's just on a cooldown. You can click it, and then it goes on a 5,400 day cooldown, similar to fractalization, 7,200. You then have extermination. Pops killed throughout own colonies, 3,000, but reduce the progress. Only do it if you have to. You may have to. Distortion allows you to jump at twice the range without suffering negative effects for 2 years. Can be useful if you have job drives. Destruction. An owned colony with at least 1,500 pops becomes a shrouded world, but reduces the progress by 180. Again, you don't want to do this if you don't have to. Shrouded world will also spread the aura a little bit. Intensification. Increase psionic aura intensity gained by plus 50 and disable all shroud seals in the galaxy for 3 years. Now, when I was playing this, I clicked this far too early. As you can see, I have not one, and I've already activated it, and I can't activate it again. Yet, there's shroud seals all the way down here blocking me. I have suggested to the devs to let this go on a cooldown like all the other ones. If that's not added, really wait until you absolutely need to click this button. Otherwise, you have to go on a galactic-wide hunt to kill all seals. Very annoying. There's then Eradication, which will declare a total war, cast a spell egg against all non-fallen empires. The end of the cycle situation will be reduced by minus 240. Again, don't do this unless you have to, but also it lets you go take those seals without having to spend influence. This origin was super fun except for finding those last seals, which hopefully gets fixed. Again, highly recommend it. The build up to it wasn't just end of cycle. You had decisions to make, as for example, we've got this mark trait. There's a bunch of stuff that you can choose while going through this origin. Next up, Proxy Wars. To start a proxy war, you need to have the Subterfuge Tradition and have finished it. As you can see, gain access to those proxy wars. There's an alternative, Secret Societies, but we'll cover that in the Civic section just after this. To start a proxy war, you can come over to any empire and click Start Proxy War. Now, this will be the target of the proxy war. You can see their defenders. To invite any attackers, you need at least 75 trust or 60 spy network on that empire for them to go to war. I believe they also can't already be in a war, as I've already sent the Great Reef and the Skin and Bones to go attack this federation because they were on my border and I just wanted their fleets to not worry about me while I just sit in this corner while I cause chaos. So let's improve relations and build that spy network on Memento Mori so we can get them to kill this devouring swarm that's been annoying us. The Great Reef just ended one of their proxy wars, so we can use them to go and attack this swarm. You can do Proxy War, which upon victory, the attacker gains control of any claimed systems and generates 33% less threat for each conquered system, so they're not going to be threatened by others. Or you can do other goals like end threat. You can do vassalization. You can do any war goal. You can also invite other attackers if you had the trust or spy network, which will make them all go to war together against them. And it's simple as just clicking that war goal and they're immediately at war. Now, I would suggest making it so they can actually get there, as the Great Reef doesn't have any connections, but at least they'll be worrying about them and not you. And of course, costs influence to use. Now that brings us to the first civic, Secret Societies. This could be used by normal empires or megacorps, and you'll have clandestine factions that will emerge after contacting other empires. Now, as you can see here, we have factions, they are all loving us, and we have 400% trust growth, 200% operation speed, 77% diplomatic weight. It also starts with the ability to conduct proxy wars, so we don't need subterfuge, although it's probably helpful. Bureaucrats will produce unity per active and successful proxy war. So if we come over to our modifiers, we have +1 because there's only one active and the Great Reef must have lost that war or settle status quo. So you do want to get winnable ones to boost up your bureaucrats. You will also start in contact with 2 of your neighbors, so you can get proxy warring off the bat. Once you do the contact, you will then get those factions. You also get infiltration level gained on empires after first contact +40. That's for any empire, not just those first contact ones. You also get -25% influence cost on proxy wars, -50% operation cost, +1 envoy, +1 encryption, and the council position will give per skill level 1 base intel level, 1% diplomatic weight, and 2.5% operation speed. Finally, the factions also do have custom issues for approval, like have positive or better relations with 2 other empires. This is obviously about trust, so it's going to be all related to being nice to people. The operation speed, they're going to have operations, intel, nebula, code breaking, deep space black site, and diplomatic weight wants you to do galactic community stuff. So you can modify the approval in ways that make sense. I really like this civic. Next up, we have pattern finders, which can be used on every single empire. You get galactic dowsing on all of them. This is an edict that increases unity from your coordinators by +1. And on completing a survey, your chance to increase resource deposit size +10%. It's a pretty nice early game edict to have on, as it can buff up your economy ever so slightly. Every 13 years though, the cycle changes. There's a bunch of these cycles that change every 13 years. So you never know what you're going to get, as there's a bunch of positive and negative ones. They can be very helpful or very annoying. There'll also be fortune events that will periodically benefit or impair your empire. For example, one just destroys all of your mining and research stuff in your capital. That's great fun. And in your notifications, you can see how long it lasts and what the current buffs and positives are. So if you got this quite early, you can go spam outposts, but maybe slow down on district building. Superstitious beliefs for normal empires also have the council position per skill level. To upkeep reduction for bureaucrats, -3.13%. You'll get 1.3% council agenda speed and less negative cycle effects, so you can actually kind of buff this up so you get less of the bad ones, and you have to be spiritualist. Next up is Entropy Drinkers, which will block all Ascension paths except for Psionic Ascension. Will give you 3 different edicts that, with 1, never letting your leaders die of old age, but for -40% pop growth speed. Sanguine Council, increasing agenda speed by 25%, but reducing pop growth speed. Convergence of Will, effective council skill +3, but reduce pop growth speed by 60%, and it also costs you some Zero. These seem bad, but there's a way of making it less bad. You can also construct the Leeching Tower, which will give you unity from jobs, and 200 energy for all jobs. This is basically the monument, and energy thralls will produce unity and leader experience gain, but will also reduce the negative of those edicts. You also start with the psychic trait, which is cool. You also get less resource from jobs, research speed, pop growth speed, mechanical pop assembly speed, but you'll reduce leader upkeep and increase leader lifespan. So it's a leader focused civic. Per skill level, you get 5% leader experience gain and empire energy generation per 100 pops 0.02. Now, as you can see, we have those 200 energy rolls, which is reducing those growth speed negatives. You're going to need a lot of planets with them on though, because you can only build one leeching tower per planet. You can, however, upgrade it to get a further 200 jobs, which you can see reduced the growth speed negative there by 4%. This can also be upgraded again for a further 200, further decreasing the edicts. You're going to need a lot of them to reduce these pop growth speeds to 0%. Next up is the Chosen, which also blocks all Ascension paths except for Psionic Ascension. You'll also start the game in contact with a Shroud patron, and you'll get additional starting technologies, the Psionic Aura. You'll get Psionic Aura Intensity gain plus 10, and you'll gain Unity scaling with attunement to the Shroud. Council position per skill level gives 2% more resources from bureaucrats. Interestingly, it does say resources, so if you can make your bureaucrats produce other things, it should also apply. This is basically your fast track to Psionic Auras and messing with those. And any Empire type could take these, you just need to be Spiritualists and not have all those civics and origins. Experimental sentencing is next. You will start with an experimental testing situation, which grants technological insights upon completion. As you can see on my sidebar here, we have the experimental testing, and it progresses based on your test subjects, which you have to build an experimentation chamber to gain the test subjects. You can just stop it if you don't want to lose pops, or you can select physics, society, or engineering to then get tech to those categories. You'll also lose 50% of your test subjects, so you do need to be careful. You could kill your entire population. The experimentation chamber gives 5% materials ethics attraction, 100 test subject jobs, and 100 experimental engineer jobs. Test subjects produce all types of research, unity, and amenities, as well as criminal branch office trade value. Experimental engineers also turn consumer goods into all types of tech, so it's quite a good tech building. You're just sacrificing some pops if you do sacrifice. There's also an upgrade that gives further buffs, as you can see here. All non-machine slaves also get access to the Ordeal's slave job, which is increasing research output and producing amenities. So they have to be slaves, but then on slavery type, you can make them orderlize, which will increase research output and produce amenities. So could really scale your tech to the moon. You also get access to the slave army abominations, and the council position per skill level gives 0.25 unity per 100 test subjects, as well as reducing test subjects lost in experimental testing. This is going to be huge if you're going massively into the test subjects, so I'd recommend getting that council position and a high level leader to reduce it as much as possible. We then have Tankbound. This is an extremely unique civic where you have to have one of the 3 tank based portraits like we have here. You also get the Tankbound trait, which reduces food upkeep by minus 50%, but increases amenity usage by 50%, but lowers pop growth speed by minus 25%. They cannot occupy worker jobs either, or be recruited in armies, so make sure you have something to work army jobs if you're going to conquer someone. The kicker here is rural districts have their worker jobs fully automated. That's right. If you look at how many planets we have, because this was my Endbringer save, every single worker job is just automated. Maybe a few slaves kicking around, but this really pairs well with going aggressive because the planets you take don't need anyone to work them. It's insane. We're just producing so many resources. Colonist jobs are also specialists, and you start with insight on assembly patterns, which increases automated workforce because, as you can see from the modifier, you have minus 30% efficiency, but if you get both automation techs, you completely nullify that negative 30%. Urban districts also have additional production overseer jobs. As we can see here, urban districts, being the city districts, are giving us unity, trade, and production and worker efficiency 63%. So again, just scales a lot. Now the main negative is that rural districts energy upkeeps plus 600%. So you can see my district is a base of 1 and then Tankbound's adding 6. But if you've got loads of energy districts going, it doesn't really matter. You do start with 2k less pops than normal, but again, you're automating all your basics, so it doesn't really matter. And you have the council position giving automated workforce efficiency plus 1% per level. So get them up, more resources. Tankbound could be extremely strong as well if you pair it with something like Necrophage or something that gives you a subspecies to work worker jobs or lack of them because they're already being worked. Could turn them into slaves, livestock, or your main species just goes burr. A really unique civic. Honestly, there's so much content in this DLC alone. We're not done yet because we also have 13 new Psionic Portraits, which I've shown off a few as we've been playing. They all also have evolution stages where they turn more psionic, essentially. Look at his eye. And they're not just for show. Psionics also have unique traits added to them, with 3 positives and 1 negative, with cranial hypertrophy giving job efficiency for researchers 15%. However, workers and menials, negative 10%. This could be fine if you have a subspecies doing that dirty work, or if you're tank bound. We then have an upgrade to that with cranial megatrophy costing 4 compared to the 2 of cranial hypertrophy, but this gives 25% efficiency for researchers, but minus 20% efficiency for workers and menial drones. Quite insane for +4, to be honest. The last positive trait is uncanny intuition, giving effective counsellor skill +2, which compare well with a lot of the strong council positions we've seen, but it does cost 3, which seems quite high for just +2 counsellor efficiency. We then have 1 negative -2 haunting visions, lowering efficiency for elites and specialists and complex drones. You have to be psionic. This could be really good if there are subspecies just doing worker jobs. A lot of variety with these civics, and they're quite niche for those weird builds like necrophage or maybe even biotrophies. The great thing about these portraits is they're not just psionic. A lot of them share different types of traits. For example, this portrait can take shelled. I'm presuming it's a musculoid, but I'm not entirely sure. Now on top of this, we get 2 new shipsets. These are mechanical, so there's no new mechanics with them, but they look pretty cool. The psionics here looking like, psionic ships, and then my favorite, Mindwarden. I just love the geometry of these, the squared off nature. They look sick. We also have a new city background, as well as the diplomatic room. We have the psionic advisor voice.
Shadows that most cannot see sing songs that most cannot hear.
There's also music tracks and more, which I may have missed. If I did, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, as I will be producing a lot of content on this DLC. I'm also planning to get early access videos of all the origins up as this video goes live. From just $1, you can watch them right now. I'll put one up on screen and I'll see you there.